off.
Hey.
We're into 2025, and it's officially actually the first time we've seen each other this year.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just realised that this
It's
morning.
nice to just roll straight into a podcast, I think.
It is really nice. We got a new space. I feel like we have a new space every time, but this is finally the new space. I picked up a warehouse in Banyo, and now I'm doing all kinds of different music shit. Soft plug, come use my studio.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm real proud of you, man. This is a real big swing you've made, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love that you've done that. You're doing it for your art as well as other people's art.
Yeah.
And, you're not out here making your main driver is not to make tons and tons of money. It's to make sure that people have a space to make art in. And
pretty much, yeah.
And, if it can be cost neutral, you're also okay with that.
Well, it's the throwback to we're now, you and me and our friend group, we're now too old to be using our parents' basement anymore to be playing in. Some of us are old enough that we own our own basements. I don't know whether those people are necessarily using them because they're flogging themselves to pay off a house. But yeah, for me, I needed a separation of church and state, if you will, because I was working from home, and so every morning I'd wake up and I would do my admin work and everything from home, but I'd also try to be creative at home. And then when I was finished doing all that, if I had some spare time, I'd be like gaming at home or watching TV. And I just realized I'm like, not only am I never leaving the house, but like I don't want to be in the house.
Yeah,
a lot of time. So yeah, you need that. The third place. You heard of the concept of the third place?
I have, yeah. Sometimes, most commonly, it's the car.
Yeah, dude. Yes.
Most commonly, it's the car. People do their thinking and maybe they're ideating and they're brainstorming, and the third place is their car. There's work, home, and car.
Yeah. Well, so this is technically also my workplace here, but like the idea that I can still work from home if I want, or I can go out to a library or whatever like that. But then when I'm here...
Because you were also doing that for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it was just a way to break things up. I have ADHD as well, so it's like I need to change the scenery quite often. And this room is so big. It's like
fantastic.
It's like 7 by 9 meters, so there's enough room to change the room around so many times that it always feels new.
And what you can't see, what is not pictured here, is a massive drum room that you've built on wheels that can be moved around in this space.
Yeah,
which is a Herculean effort.
It was a big thing. My wrist is still buggered. Actually, I haven't been a tradie for like it's probably 3 years now I haven't been a tradie, and I spent like 10 solid days building this drum room on my own, and by the end of it, I've completely wrecked my wrist trying to do all of it. So
I did say ask.
Yeah, what's that?
I did say ask for help.
Oh no, that's I was hyper-focused. Before I knew it, I was done, and then I was like, I probably should have asked for some help. But yeah, soft plug. I got an isolated drum room. I got a big space for filming like music videos and stuff in here. It's like a big tall ceiling warehouse. You can set up lights and stuff. You can shoot podcasts here if you want. And photography stuff. You can record and band rehearsals as well. So pretty much everything you could think of.
There's internet.
Yeah.
So you could stream. You could do a Twitch thing if you wanted to. Yeah,
that's something I want to get into as well. Yeah. But Banyo, north side of Brisbane, right next to the gateway, super convenient. That's enough of my advertising.
I don't even know if that's a soft plug. I think it was a hard plug.
It's a pretty hard plug, yeah. But also the third place thing as well. You're right about the car thing. Is that now I've got a commute as well. It's a 10-minute from my house, which is super close. Yeah. But like working from home, I didn't have that. When I was a tradie, I used to most days have to drive half an hour to an hour to where I was going. And
there's a lot of ideation that goes on in that drive. There's a lot of thoughts that you have that are brought up you're stimulated by seeing billboards, marketing, cars, people.
Most of the lyrics I've ever written as well were in cars. I used to do a 5-hour commute from Sunny Coast to Gladstone when I first moved to Sunny Coast. I was doing work in both places. And
brutal commute.
At the time, you're like, oh man, this is so much and it sucks. But then after a while, I started to miss it once I stopped doing it because I wrote so many lyrics. I thought about so much creative stuff that
How did you put that? Were you doing voice notes?
I was doing voice notes and I was doing like Google Voice into Keep as well. So like if I was just thinking of lyrics to not music or whatever like that, I just hit like the voice like to text.
And this is because you got a Google phone.
Yeah. And so do the voice to text. But yeah, I didn't realize when I stopped commuting and when I was working from home how much I relied on that. And tying it back to the music theme, I think part of my disconnect with music and why we started this podcast, for me at least, was that I wasn't listening to music as much anymore.
Yeah.
Because music was like drive time was music time.
Yeah.
And so much of when I was a teenager, I would spend, 20-minute drive to work. I would blast music on the way to work and that would start my day. And then when I took the commute away, I was less active listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Did you drive to Rockhampton when you went up for Christmas?
No.
No, you flew? Yeah.
Flew, yeah.
If you were to drive to Rockhampton.
The perks of having a partner that
would it
works
be music
for Virgin.
the whole way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I drive, I'd be interested now to do a longer drive now that I have a CPAP machine.
Yeah.
Plug for getting older.
Because you would tire out pretty quick.
Hour and a half in, I was dying. I'd be getting the nod on. And I would be interested to see now my stamina for long distance driving.
And you didn't like night driving because of that as well, right?
Yeah, very specifically didn't like night driving because of that, because I knew there's a double chance of
because
nodding
it's
off. Yeah.
Dark out. For me, I always preferred night driving because I hated driving in the sun because that would tire me out.
Yep.
The constant glare in your eyes. And so I would often, if I was driving Gladstone to Sunny Coast, I'd leave at about 5 p.m. I'd get the sunset and I'd listen to music all the way. And quite often as well, like if there's a favorite album, is like a certain length, right? One of mine was Between the Buried and Me. Their album Colors is like this basically one long song, right? Like it's like all the songs blend into each other and it's written as like a 60-minute piece of music. So I'd wait till I was 60 minutes out of Sunny Coast and I'd put it on and it would finish, like the last notes would finish as I'm rolling into the driveway.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of those New Year's things where it'll say, if you play Die Hard at, such and such a time, you'll get John McClane saying "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker."
Yeah.
Or whatever, or maybe Hans falls at midnight or whatever.
I've seen him do it with like Endgame as well, where it's just like I am Iron Man and he clicks and it's New Year's and like the fireworks go off out the window because they're on the water or whatever. And
there's a song that has "Here We Go Again, Motherfucker." Oh, it's Psychosocial.
Yeah,
by Psychosocial. No. There's a Slipknot song that says "Here we go again, motherfucker."
Song. Yeah.
And so if you play it, you get that right on.
My favorite one I saw yesterday was that there was a sign in some town somewhere that said number of smoking deaths this year. That's got a digital counter on it, and it was up to like 445,000.
No.
But everyone's standing out the front of it, right? And then at midnight, it goes back to 0.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's how many this year. So it goes back to 0 and then fireworks go off in the back and everyone cheered because they were waiting for the sign to reset.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Anyway, I've taken us off track here. So
I was trying to get us back on track by bringing it back to the New Year's thing.
That's why I took the ownership of that. So it's a new year. So we're talking about kind of the predictions for changes in the music industry this year, and
are we going to see the same again, or what
trends and
predictions and trends? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd just start with a couple of resolutions. I think they're kind of going to be personal ones, but I think they're pretty applicable. I don't think that these aren't applicable for everyone. I think
they're kind of homework for you guys as well, I think, of like take a couple of these and maybe try them out for yourself.
Well, it's certainly homework for me. I definitely want to see more live music.
Yeah.
Last year, I wasn't in work for quite a long time. Going out and spending money on something like that seemed, unfortunately, frivolous to be doing. So
and it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
No.
And it's an effort as well. It's a real effort. But I think in a time where we're at where small venues are struggling, and I don't know if you've seen the list of major artists that are coming to Brisbane in February alone. But there is a 2-week window where it's like Billie Eilish, Drake, Bryan Adams, Kylie Minogue, and The Prodigy are all here within 2 weeks.
And they're just like the stadium artists and stuff.
Exactly.
Then there's the
Well, my point is, while it's nice to see those artists, please don't forget to go and see the artists that are $12 at your local.
Well, that is part of the issue with it. You know, it is great. It's always awesome that there's so much music happening. But after the pandemic, like seems like it was so long ago now, but we're still seeing the bounce back of like, I really honestly don't think like 2018, 2019, we had this volume and this size of acts coming.
There's totally more.
Yeah.
And it started about halfway through last year, seeing the announcements for this year, and I just started going, this seems insane in a time where people don't have loads of money. These promoters are doubling down on maybe people's desire, like, oh my God, I'm really hurting. I haven't got a lot of money. And I just need something, good in my life. And oh my God, Green Day's coming in March just after that as well. So like you got all of the, these crazy huge artists, and the ticket prices are all insane.
Yeah.
And
it's not even that the ticket prices are like relatively too expensive with the cost of touring and everything like that. It's like there's no bones about with the mid-size artists them having to charge what they are for tickets. It's not that it is crazy how much they're charging. It's that there's so many acts coming and it's all a bit more expensive than it used to be. And so now where you might have been able to see in a month, 2 or 3 acts, you might only be able to pick 1 now.
Yeah. Totally.
And miss, you're probably picking out of 10 that are coming that you want to see. There's 3 that you'd narrow it down to that you'd really like to, but like it's going to hurt to pay for all 3.
Yeah. I keep getting asked, are you going to this? Are you going to that? Are you going to that? No, I can't. And so what I feel like this year is going to be, well, one, I've just gotten a job where it's at a live music venue. So I think by default, I will see a lot more live music going to shows at that particular venue. But I also want to make an effort to see smaller shows more often at other venues as well.
Absolutely.
I really want to make that effort this year, and I want to go and see more, and not just ones that I'm helping to organise.
Yeah, of course.
So I actually want to go and see more.
Yeah. We've got new Crowbar now in Brisbane again, which is going to be huge because that's like is it mid-size the right? What's the cap there?
It's just
800.
No. It's just over 500.
500, yeah.
If they've kept the layout roughly the same as what was at the zoo, it was just over 500.
They've widened the stage a little bit. They took away like the side panels and stuff and widened it, and it looks really. I haven't been there, but I've seen some great videos. Yeah. But that's cool that's open again. So like that is kind of the perfect size venue for one of your bigger bands that you want to see because it's still, if it sells out, it feels intimate.
Yeah.
But there's like places like Bearded Lady and places like what's the other one? I can't, like Brightside and stuff like that are still that sort of size where, you can go there and get out of it reasonably cheap to see some really cool fucking acts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's even smaller ones, and it's supported at every level, I think is the point of what I'm trying to make. I think where you could go and see one artist for $200 plus at a stadium, you could see 8 to 10 at somewhere much more local to you and far less inconvenience.
Also, if you throw it back to like the physical media days, like I personally like, I've kind of settled for this idea, and I guess it kind of makes me a hypocrite because I'm like support the music scene, but like I use Spotify like everybody else. I don't really buy music like I probably should, and I know that's how it works, but I know that that's how it works for everyone. So if there's a band that I know and I like and I really want to support them, I'll go to their Bandcamp or whatever and I'll buy stuff. But the crux of it is 10, 15 years ago, I was spending maybe $1,000 on CDs every year. So like now that we aren't paying for that music, the bands are using these gigs to try and make their money that they aren't making out of CD sales anymore. So like if you are worried about the cost of it, try and reframe it a little bit in your budget as like, where aren't you spending money that you used to be? Reallocate that. Again, cost of living, fucking hard.
Yeah, don't want to tell you to put yourself on the bones of your ass.
But when you're thinking about it, it's just like the money you're not spending on CDs to support those artists, if you aren't, you know, is what you could be spending on going and seeing the shows. And honestly, the shows I think are more valuable now because the music is so easy to get.
Yeah. Buy a shirt instead of 2 beers.
Yeah. The other, what was your other resolution?
Lord knows the beers are $15 each. So.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't buy beer on like bars anymore. I want to support the venues as well, but like, you know,
it's hard. Yeah.
Where it used to maybe be like 6 schooners or whatever like that, or for a big night, it's maybe 1 now and a Coke.
Yeah.
A Coca-Cola, not a BYO.
To be fair.
Yeah.
I just, there's something's got to give, and in the budget, and you know, I think you got to share it around amongst, you know, maybe one gig you buy merch, maybe the next one you buy beers.
Yep. You had another like resolution.
Yeah, I just really think as well. I try to do this every year, and I think I'm going to actually make a couple of different genre playlists this year to be a bit more catch-all, because I usually just have a heavy playlist.
Yeah.
That I filter stuff that I want to keep listening to. You know, I try new stuff out. If I like it, it makes the playlist. If I don't, it doesn't.
I actually have a question for anyone listening. Send us your comments or DM us or whatever. I'd like to know how everybody else uses, like assuming you're using Spotify or streaming app, how you approach opening your app. So for 2 reasons. One,
approach opening your app.
Like when you go to listen to music, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
It used to be if you had a wall of CDs, you'd go to your wall of CDs. Maybe you've got them categorized, maybe you don't. They're by artist or whatever like that. But when you go to select something that you want, you do that. If you had an MP3 library, it's probably organized by like folders. Artists.
Yep.
So like the folders would be a folder tree of like artist, and then you open it up and there's their albums and stuff.
Yep.
So the artist list always used to be the guiding light. I think if you're in media player or whatever, you'd scroll through your artist list and decide who you want to listen to. I haven't opened my artist list in Spotify for years. Sometimes I go to albums and I'll randomly scroll through and try to pick one. But for me, it's either I think of an artist that I want to listen to and I directly search for them, or I go to my recent playlist or an old playlist or whatever. Playlists are the North Star now for me going and experiencing the app. But then I was hanging out with a mate recently and they were saying that they don't really use playlists and they just use the artist list still. And I was like, made me remember like, my habits have totally changed, which also shapes what I do and don't listen to now. Because if it hasn't made it into a playlist or I haven't thought about it for a while, I won't listen to that band because I'm not seeing it as I scroll through. So is that what you do?
Not the artist list. No.
The playlist thing?
Yeah, I do the playlist thing. And it's by year.
Yeah, right.
So I make a year playlist.
Yeah.
And so this year I'm going to have 2025 heavies, 2025, bangers, 25 sort of, I want to categorize a bit more because everything else other than heavies was just going by the wayside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, because you get in a rut of like there was a year there where all I listened to was like Swancore, like Dance Gavin Dance and everything. Like I just really liked them. I was listening to them heaps. I had a playlist of all their albums, and then when the playlist would run out, it would like stream other bands that were on the label. And that's kind of all I got recommended. That's all I listened to for like an entire year because I wasn't in active listening mode that year. I was busy with other things. And so I just found a vibe of music that I liked and that's all I took in for like a whole year.
In that vein, the band I've been really enjoying lately is Idola.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that band.
Yeah.
That's really been tickling my fancy, yeah.
But yeah, the monthly playlist I do, I think I've talked about that before.
The monthly playlist, that feels
that's like a dumping ground sort of thing. I heard a song in Spotify radio. I like that. I'm going to grab that album and I'm going to chuck it in this playlist for later.
But it's also not all just brand new stuff either. It's what I discovered in that month, right?
It's what I discovered this month.
And it doesn't matter when it's from. It's just what I discovered and liked in that month.
Yeah, and part of it is then I can go back at the end of the month if I want and have a listen through and find the albums that like I heard a song of and I was like, oh, I dig that. I want to hear more. Give the album a proper go and then maybe like add that to like a more like regular playlist, like a playlist that is like, you know, my heavy playlist or whatever.
I have a classics.
Yeah, but it's a sifting. It's like a funnel. It's like the I get recommended the thing. It goes into the monthly funnel, then it goes into the other one, and then eventually maybe I'll like buy the album or do something else. And yeah.
Certainly my way of supporting artists was either merch or vinyl, and certainly vinyl consumption for me has dropped right off. It's another collection that I just don't have the funds to keep adding to because they're regularly $60 and $70 very easily. So that's something that unfortunately has dropped off for me. So.
Also space as well, because like, you know, some people I got a friend who recently decided to buy a unit because he had been kicked out of like 2 or 3 rentals in a row just because you look around for somewhere for like he lives in Sydney as well. Look around for 2 or 3 months, sweet talking agents and trying to get, you know, in before other people. You finally get into an apartment. You get a year into you have a 12-month lease and at the end of it they go, oh, we want to sell. And so twice in a row he had it happen to him where they wanted to sell and they kicked him out. And this most recent one, I think they wanted to move back into it themselves, but they were only in there 9 months. It took them 3 months to get this place. And so they were nearly homeless at the end of it, just as they were about to move into this new one. Like they just almost didn't get the overlap. And so they moved in this new place. They move all their shit in, and now they've decided to buy a house this next time or a unit because they got sick of moving, but also like they were at the point where they're like, do we have to just downsize the things that we own because like it costs us so much to move every time. Maybe we just don't own things anymore because it's, you know.
What's the point of living?
Yeah, what's the point? So the other thing we wanted to get to was like trends and things that we're going to think's going to happen this year. And one thing that I was bringing up earlier was the
cyclical nature of fashion.
This is like 2025, I think, is like 1989.
I reckon you're right, Doug.
We're going from glam rock to grunge.
I reckon you're spot on. I noticed this when I was in Rockhampton for Christmas, and you know that things are starting to hit a critical mass when things have hit the regions. And that 90s fashion, it's hit.
I say this with love, but I'm noticing that like Gen Z and like I don't know about Gen Alpha maybe, but like people in their like early 20s are actively dressing like shit. In the sense that I feel like there's been all of the TikTokification, all of the
baggy jeans.
Yeah, all of the really trying to look your best self on social media. People are like using social media less. They're changing the way that they make content. Like YouTube videos used to be like really shiny.
It's almost a reaction to that.
Yeah, like content is getting more casual, clothing's getting more casual and everything, and it's rejecting this like really shiny version of reality. And that's just what happened when like, you know, Nirvana, for want of an easy reference, came along.
Was a total reaction to the shiny production of pop and glam rock and all of the things that were filling stadiums in 1989.
Yeah. I mean, fucking what was it? 9 Inch Nails.
Yep.
Was like basically looked like a glam rock band in the mid 80s. And then by the 90s, it was, you know, fucking Downward Spiral and all of the just really heavy shit. There was all the grunge stuff that went with that. I mean, like, I don't really like referencing Pantera, but they were a glam rock band.
They totally
And then
were,
all of a sudden they were dirty rednecks, you know?
Southern
like
metal, yeah.
Yeah, they liked, it was all about the cargo shorts and the just looking like filthy, crusty metal dudes.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what's happening.
I agree. And I think
it's not new this year, but
I agree. It's been coming. The wave has been building.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's interesting being the age we are, we were there for it.
Mm.
We were very young, of course, but I saw it. I had older cousins. I had I had friends with older brothers and sisters who you could see those attitudes in what they were doing, and you felt that cultural zeitgeist at the time as well. And that also bred over into the comedy in movies at the time.
Yeah.
You had stuff like Wayne's World, which was like a really big cultural zeitgeist at the time. That was very pointing out the change and and there was this real thing of the overarching attitude, I think, at that time was that not selling out.
Yeah.
It was, don't be a big corporate shill.
Yeah. Well, you're right with the comedy too. The 80s comedy was very fast, slick, quick talking stuff. 90s comedy was more like Hedberg and sort of like the more kind of like not alternative comedy, but it was much more
it was about like don't sell out to the man, don't be
but like average guy.
Oh yeah. Like look at your Happy Gilmores or your
Yeah. Like old comedy, like 80s comedy, you had like Dangerfield and like Eddie Murphy, and you had all this like slick, quick, punchy, big energy. Yeah. 90s was like your kind of like Louis C.K. or like the kind of like, I'm the slubby average guy kind of thing. And I know he's not fun to reference anymore either, but
just picking out all of the like real bangers.
But it was grungy comedy.
Totally.
And then 2000s, you see music, you see fashion, and you see comedy start to take a turn again. And that was the millennial sort of thing of everything's getting kind of like weird, and like the alt comedy scene got bigger, but also like the music got really kind of edgy because it's new millennium sort of thing. And yeah, I just think we're sort of seeing all of that play out again.
I firmly believe there's a 30-year cycle.
Yeah.
And I think that's about spot on timing. Yeah. And you could, if you look at it, I remember we've seen these cycles of decades go through already. Like look at the early 2000s. Look at like your Jet, Vines, Strokes.
Yeah.
We were doing the 60s and 70s.
Well, it stands to reason though, right? 30-year cycle makes a lot of sense because, I mean, look at it from like
generational,
the millennial point of view of like the 90s is like, I was born 1990. Yeah. So like I grew up through all of that stuff. So that was formative for me. And now I'm at the age now where I can be making things like that. Or there's a lot of people that in the entertainment industry work their way up, and in their 30s, they're finally where they want to kind of be so they can be influencing things.
Let me put it to you this way, right? Now, my parents have never been the kind of people who are like right on top of trends or, liking bands before they were big or anything like that. They were always just very focused on work and bringing up their children and all of that sort of stuff. Even before they had kids, they weren't, out looking for the latest music or all of that sort of stuff, right? They were aware of music, not big seekers of new music. But even so, I do remember being in the late 90s as a teenager and talking about sounds of and showing them new music and stuff like that, and wearing particular clothes and fashion and all that sort of stuff, and having them go, oh, that's just like what we used to wear back in the day, or those are just flares or whatever, and going like, oh, you wouldn't get it, Mum, or whatever. It's happening again. It just happens again, and you realize that though we don't have children, we are of the age where we could have teenage children if we had have started early.
Yeah, exactly.
And teenage or maybe even young adult age children if we started real early, is that we're just at that point where we're going like, that's been done before because, my God, all I'm doing now is looking and going, oh, my God, we've lived through the cargo shorts era. What are we doing here? Why are we doing baggy jeans again?
My wife is 35 this year, this month actually, and she's at university. She's just starting her 4th year of opera, and so she's at Griffith University, which is like a music school.
Yeah.
Right?
A very, very highly regarded music school. Exactly. Let's not understate the amazing effort Becca's
conservatorium,
making.
right?
Yeah.
But so what she's noticed is in the last few years is when she started, because she's starting later in life, a lot of the people that started the degree at the same time as her were 18, right? Yeah. Freshly out of high school. So like you say, there's about 15 years when she started, 15 years between the other people starting and her. So she was having a similar sort of thing of looking around and going, what you're wearing is what I was wearing when I was a teenager, when I was like 15. And my mum said to me, what are you wearing that for? That's what I was wearing when I was a kid. Why is this popular again? And then enough time has passed that Becca's seeing that same thing that her mum asked her about being worn by people younger than her. So you're right. That's not fully the 30-year thing, but it's definitely you're seeing the cycle, and the day that you realize you're saying, what are you wearing that for? That's so like old, is when you realize like, oh, it's happened. Yeah. I've arrived at my parents' age. And
totally. And it's interesting. I thought maybe we had done the 90s before. I thought maybe we had seen the cycle because I remember when Violent Soho hit, and this is maybe a decade ago now, I remember thinking, this is grunge. Grunge is back. And I don't think that was the full wave of grunge coming back.
Yeah.
I think this now is the fashion. The mullets are back, and the mullets haven't, they've been back a while, but I think we're going to get
the mullets are pretty rife.
Yeah, rife indeed.
Yeah.
I think when you brought that up before about the 90s and the sort of 80s, that, and specifically that reaction to the shiny production, the slickness of everything, I do agree very heavily that we're going to see a bit of a repetition of the 90s and in attitudes, in production, in music, in art, in movies, which I'm here for. I loved the 90s. I thought it was a great era to be growing up in and getting your influence from, because I thought there's a lot of great stuff to take away. A lot of some of it was pretty heavy-handed in its preachiness about like, don't be a corporate shill, don't sell out to the man, which has all been pretty abandoned pretty heavily in the 2000s because we're all like, well, they're the only ones who've got any money left to fund anything.
Yeah. Well, I will say as well, like there's the weird dystopian thing with AI now is I feel like what we're going to get was in the 90s when the internet was pretty new, right? And you could get on like a chat, and your parents didn't know what a fucking chat room was, right? And you could get on chat rooms and chat with people, or your MSN, which is a little less predatory, I guess.
Oh, they completely shut down the ICQ servers the other day.
Yeah,
last week.
Saw that.
I was like, oh my God, what was ICQ doing this whole time? I didn't know. I don't know a single person who barely even remembers ICQ. Yeah. Why was they still running servers?
Well, I guess maybe they forgot about them too, and that's why they hadn't shut them down. Someone realized like, hey, do we need this switch on? Could we turn it off? The other thing was so with the chat room sort of thing, I heard yesterday that Facebook has announced that in 2025 they are going to start experimenting with having AI accounts. So creating fake AI accounts. But see, this is interesting. They don't say fake. They're saying AI, and so they'll be effectively look like a regular person's profile. They'll have content and pictures and, blah, 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 and they'll have real, like AI generated pictures. But the idea, I think, is to create more engagement for their platform, for their point of view, right? But also it'll give other people, accounts to engage with.
The only advantage I can see there is maybe to combat loneliness in people.
Yeah.
People to chat with.
But then the dystopian side of it kind of is that they used the fake account, people, making fake accounts for years. They're trying to stop people. Like, what it's like. You've worked with Facebook, like Ad Manager and stuff, and you got locked out of your Facebook account one time because they thought that you were a scammer because you had logged in at too many different computers around town for different jobs.
Yeah.
And they were just like, there's something going on here. And so they stamp you out.
Yep.
But all of the combating of fake accounts, now they're going to actually start creating fake accounts, but they're not calling them fake accounts. But the reason I bring it up is that back in the day, in the 90s, we had chat rooms. And so there was like these faceless people that you don't know that you were chatting with and interacting with. And our parents saw that as dystopian because they're like, who the fuck could they be talking to? But blah, blah, blah.
And genuine concern, by the way.
But sometimes, genuinely, I had friends that made friends through like gaming chats and chat rooms and things that they're still friends with now. And
at least it's a bit more verifiable these days. There's verification
100%
required for.
But then with these AI accounts, there's not going to be any real way to know whether they are real or not. Yeah. And so I think part of that
I think is
going to bleed into music because there'll be AI made music like there has been and there will continue to be. Yeah. And so we're going to have like this weird subsect of media, I think, that is going to be either AI generated by corporations or AI generated by people who are using that, like Daft Punk would use their helmets sort of thing, is creating an entire AI front for their band, like you using a Stephen King using a different name for books and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's my thing.
Wow.
We're nearly 40 minutes. Okay. Anything else close out?
I mean, the only point that I was going to say, I think that music in 2025, I think, is going to be angrier and hornier.
Yeah.
I think in a cost of living crisis, in a time where people are struggling and all of that sort of stuff, I think you're going to get marginalized people who have made art for their career or now are just getting into it. There's a lot more to be angry about. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more have-nots.
Yeah.
And that always creates reactionary art, I think. And again, it comes back to that 90s thing. I think there was a lot of people that were feeling very put out by large corporations. I think you're going to get, and governments. And I think you're going to get a lot more angry and political art.
I saw some discussion today. There was a Wall Street Journal article a couple of days ago that was titled "What Happens When an Entire Generation Doesn't Grow Up," and it was effectively targeted at like millennials and Gen Z as like, millennials more because it's like people in their 30s that like haven't hit the traditional milestones of being an adult, like buying a house and having kids and having stable careers and blah blah blah. But a lot of the comments on that post were people saying, well, the thing that this art, I didn't get to read the article because it's paywalled, but the gist of it was all of those
That's
things.
Irony,
like I read just a brief sort of description of that, and a lot of the comments about it were nothing in this article points to why that is though. As in like it doesn't really address what the real thing is. It's the system failing people and all of the problems we've had with inflation and blah, blah, blah. And so like you're saying, that's what the rhetoric is that, these people aren't growing up, blah, blah, blah. But really is that there's all of these difficulties that people are dealing with, and some people can and some people can't. But the people that are struggling are going to make that kind of art because historically in recessions and times of poverty and that sort of stuff in Western world, at least, you get a lot of people that take up drinking and smoking. They can't go out much, so that they're doing that at home, and they're fucking a lot as well. So you end up with, like, during recession, big families.
Yeah.
And also, making angry art. So I totally agree with that because it's.
I think it comes down to, and I bring up angry and horny, and the point is, in both of those cases, I think, is in times where you have nothing, you go to fantasy.
100%.
And so I think you go to, what do I desire most? I desire revolution.
Yeah.
I desire a change. And at my most primal, I desire.
Yeah.
just full stop. And so, I think we've already started to see it. I think there's a lot of bands, pop music has got more overtly horny. I think they've stopped with the metaphor and just started saying the thing out loud.
Yeah.
They've just literally started saying the thing that used to be censored or use metaphor or.
There's a lot of social media that now as well, like music and social media, but just generally like people putting out this whole sort of, not nihilism, but like putting out this very like, oh, everything's fucked, I guess, and like whatever. And like, again, we're in the Western world where it's not horrible for everyone everywhere. That's totally acknowledgeable. It's not like we're in a really bad spot, but it's more the fact there's a lot of people that are sort of feeling a little bit hopeless about things and they're really embracing that.
I might as well say the quiet part out loud.
Yes, exactly that.
And so
who gives a fuck?
Yeah. And so, I think you're going to get a lot less cares about offending people with either angry or horny art.
Yeah. That's very fair.
And with that, we leave you for our first episode of 2025.
Sure. And we're going to probably start doing these year. We've been away for a little while, so we're probably going to start putting them out fortnightly so we can manage it a little bit better, and we'll start putting out some other sort of like clips and content. And if there's anything you guys want to see, let us know. And maybe some interviews as well this year.
Yes, that's what I definitely would like to do more.
Yeah.
Those interviews and get people either on the couch, which would be rad, or do them on Zoom.
Yeah. So if you are one of the 6 people out there and you're interviewable, let us know and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, that'd be rad.
A chat.
Oh,
we like chatting.
So we're getting Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, I think I already talked to Jimmy about this. I think he's keen to come and sit in with us again.
Guest star.
All right, love you guys.